I think many people, when they talk about values, they're like, oh, I know my values. And a lot of the time, we actually live in other people's values, right? Because we don't really know, unless we're doing this work intensively, who we really are, right? So I had a client and she was like, I have kids and I feel like I'm supposed to put family as a value, but it's not. Like my value is adventure, right? Or for me, I remember when I was working on my values in the beginning and I really felt uncomfortable saying leadership. I was like, oh, I don't know. I feel like I need to have something like more humble. Right. But the truth is, like, I am a natural born leader. And it's like the other part of why I place the work of values in the certain place that I do it in my program is because we kind of have to get to know who we are a little bit so that we can make sure that we're not living in other people's values of who we think we're supposed to be based on our partner, or, whether if we're a step parent or whatever it is, right? Like we have these sort of subconscious ways of being and showing up in the world. And sometimes they're not aligned with us. So a lot of the time when people are feeling just sort of unhappy and stuck, I really dig into that work because I feel like it is such a valuable thing that many people believe, oh, I've done that, and they sideline it, but like really they haven't done it correctly.
Welcome my guest, Melissa Wiggins. She's a dynamic, spirited Scottish lassie and known by many as Coach Mummabear. This fiercely Scottish native has worn many hats: a sharp-minded lawyer, a high-performance master, certified professional life coach, and an inspirational speaker. With a podcast ranking in the global top 10% and a voice that resonates across continents, she is a force to be reckoned with. But Melissa's story isn't just about professional accolades. Her upcoming book, UnFollow, encapsulates her philosophy on life. UnFollow isn't a prescriptive guide, but rather a thought-provoking exploration of life's choices and possibilities. She encourages readers to question everything with excitement, enabling them to discern what truly matters and align their actions with their values. All right. I am so happy to welcome on this beautiful soul, Melissa Wiggins. Welcome to the show. I am so happy you're here.
I'm so happy to be here and see your beautiful
face.
This has
been a long time in waiting, but I think it's the most perfect time to have you on, considering you have a new book that is coming out. But I just want to first acknowledge you. I was so fortunate to meet you, I think a little over a year ago. We met at a mastermind we spoke at with our dear friend Amberly Lago called the Unstoppable Life Mastermind. And her and I were actually doing our first keynote speaking talk, and we were just sharing like our nerves and how we were excited but yet afraid, but we knew we were going to kill it, and we were just obviously cheering each other on. But it meant so much to have your support and have you just cheering me on from the back. And I just know that that energy was just so well received, and it supported me so much in doing that first talk, which I know you killed it. And obviously you have been doing so many more speaking events since then. And I've just watched you rise, and it's remarkable. So I can't wait for people to know more about you, because you are just a super gem and also an absolute style icon. So for anybody that's just listening in, I encourage you to go onto YouTube and just look at this beautiful face. And she is just like, literally, I'm trying to think of the name to describe you as, but just, I literally think you're like a style icon. Everything you put together that you wear, your earrings, your hats, and also obviously your vibrancy is just so beautiful. And I want people to get to know you more and see your beautiful face. So go on YouTube, anybody that's listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's get jamming. So I am, like I said, you have a new book coming out called UnFollow. I I don't want to chop it up. I want to make sure I say it correctly. So unfollow, question everything.
Question everything with excitement.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. So before we go into that topic today, I first want people to get to know you more. And you are a
Yeah.
master life coach. So I just want to start there. What led you into becoming a life coach? Because I know you were formerly a lawyer. So what led you into that, and how has it really evolved in the last years?
Yeah, it's funny because it feels very organic to me, right? And it's funny because I know a lot of people go into their career and they're like, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer for the next however many years, right? Like that's very, very common, especially in law. But I sort of moved in to become the CEO of our nonprofit. And then after that, I did a lot of speaking. And so it just sort of led into I'm very interested in self development, always have, like two of my main values are growth and leadership. And so for me, it just sort of became very organic. And it really was just sort of showing up online as myself, right? And sharing, like, here's something that works for me, here's something I do. And then I was like, oh, I wonder if I should get certified in this. And I started doing retreats and masterminds and starting a community. And it felt like this is just what I'm supposed to be doing, like all very organic for me, because I think, and we've talked about this before, Erica, like when you live inside of your values, it really isn't, it's it's not hard to move from thing to thing when it's in your values, right? Like when they're all intertwined inside of it, and my values are all inside of coaching, they're all inside of speaking, right? They're all inside of supporting another woman before she does her first keynote, right? Like that's just me showing up as myself. And I think once you do some of that inner work, then you really can like get to do the fun stuff, which is where you get to put all of that inner work into like action. And that's kind of what the book is.
That's amazing. Okay, so values, that's an important topic. And I do want to touch on that. But before I do, everybody could hear her accent. So she's not originally from the United States, from Scotland. And so talking a little bit deeper into that, you mentioned you have a nonprofit. Can you kind of share a little bit of your journey of what this nonprofit is and how it came about? And how has this,
Absolutely.
because I believe, as your book said, it question everything with excitement. I believe part of that journey, the cause, if you want to say, of starting a nonprofit, part of that journey was questioning what you are being told that that's the final end all be all, but maybe yet questioning that, and maybe there's something more, maybe there's something better, and a new solution that hasn't been thought about. So I believe this is like your driving force and kind of that led you into questioning so many more things.
Yeah, at the beginning of the book, so the book is sort of laid out in 20 different chapters, and each one is a different thing that I think most of us can either unfollow or question whether we should be following it, right? Whether we should be doing it, whether that should be our action. And I sort of kickstart the book off by saying unfollow medical gaslighting, right? That's like the first topic, and it's a big one. And I talk about questioning that I want everybody to follow, question everything with excitement, because I was in a situation where I was about to deliver twin baby boys. And at the same time, my only child at the time, Cannon, was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma cancer. And so we were going through this crazy time where we were being told, he has a 50% chance of survival. Here's the treatment we believe you should do. And when I started questioning it, I got a lot of pushback, right? And I questioned it from this place of like a research-led place, because that was my background, was in law. So it was all very like, well, show me the stats on the number of children that survive this, and show me the stats on, like, it was very methodical. And Canon had this gene, Erica, called NMIC amplified. And if you have that gene, those kids are even less likely to survive. And so we knew that we had to go through these different treatment protocols for Canon, but it might not look the same as what another child would look like. And so we started, finding the number one surgeon in the country for neuroblastoma. So we went to Memorial Sloan Kettering. Then we started finding the number one place to do stem cell transplants. So we went to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And what happened was these doctors, that were essentially supposed to be taking care of him started to sort of berate me and say things like, you're an idiot if you put your kid on that trial, and we can do the surgery here, and all these different things. And I think one of the things that I really like to share in my interviews about the book is I was 29 years old with one child about to give birth to twins. I was, if you're 29 and you're listening, but I really was just very young, you know, and I just really felt young, and I was being told these things by, you know, 70-year-old males who were in charge of the hospital. And I really struggled with questioning it. And I think that it's really important that I share that, because it's easy to look at me now as someone who's 40, right? 40 in a couple of days, right? Not long to go, and who looks confident and, you know, reassured of herself, and think, oh, well, yes, of course she can go up against a hospital, or of course she could start a nonprofit. But I really want people listening to know that, like, that sort of developed as I went through this work of unfollowing these different things, right? And so I decided to unfollow what the doctors were telling us. And I put my son on this clinical trial along with my husband. That's what we wanted to do. And we put him on a trial in a different state. And, you know, he's in middle school right now. And so I love to believe that we made the right decisions for him. You know, he's here and alive. But the other side of that is, fast forward a decade, and now every single child with neuroblastoma has that exact treatment. So we weren't idiots to think that it was the right thing to do. And I think, hadn't we unfollowed that, right? Because we just started questioning everything differently, right? And that's what the book's all about. It's like questioning it with, okay, you're telling me my son has a 50% chance of being alive in 5 years. What if I start thinking of it like, oh my gosh, what if my son makes it? And what if we fund research so other kids can have these types of treatments? Like, I started to get excited about it. And that's why the foundation was founded, right? We founded Cannonball Kids Cancer, which is now a worldwide recognized organization. We have research in Europe and Switzerland, Canada, America. We have research in more than half of the states in the United States, and options for over 700 children. I mean, we gave $1 million last year just to research. And so this foundation has become its own incredible entity, and it's not about one family anymore. And that's so beautiful to me. But it all began with questioning like everything.
How freaking remarkable is that? I mean, I love that story in itself because there's so many gems, number one, and it's so, so inspiring. And just the thought that because you were eager, you weren't settling for anything less, you were curious, you were, you know, making moves, like making decisions, being decisive. And yes, scary. I'm sure I could not even imagine carrying twins and then having to deal with something so major, but you did. And that's something I'm more curious about as well. Like, how did you manage that? How did you not get so stressed with all these decisions and moving forward? But, you know, what you've created is just remarkable. And God, I mean, like, kudos to you. I mean, like, you're literally saving lives. Not only have you saved your child's life, but so many others. And I just think that you and your husband are absolutely remarkable. I will include that in the show notes, the organization, so people could go support you and cheer you on. But yeah, talking about that, like, how did you manage knowing if you were looking back at yourself then, how did you manage the stress? How did you be decisive? Like, how did you handle the situations? Like, if you were to just look back at yourself where you are today, knowing what you know now, like what would you say was the big thing that really gave you the capabilities to do this, being a mom and pregnant at the same time?
I think that one of the things and the philosophies that I really practice in my life is, if everything is important, nothing is important, right? Like, and it's just sort of that idea of deciding what is the most important thing right now. And I actually created a journal for my clients. And one of the things, like, I have them answer is like, what's the one thing you're doing right now? Like the big push. And so in that situation, I knew the number one thing I had to do was to save my son's life, period. That was it. That was the only thing that I had to do in that moment. And everything else was gravy, Erica, right? Everything else I was able to do was gravy. And the twins were born 10 days later, and our life looked like this. I lived in the hospital. Someone else would bring my children to me, my twins. I would breastfeed them and they would take them away, and I would go back to Canon. And that was our life for like several years, right? It was just chaotic and crazy, and we were traveling all over the country. We really traveled a lot in the beginning for Canon's treatment. And it just was like, what's my number one focus? I know I'm eventually going to be able to bond with these children. I know I'm going to be able to have a relationship with them. It just can't be right now because I have to fight for this kid. And I think, like, you know, we can apply that to anything in our life, right? For the listener, like on all of the things, right? When we get so overwhelmed and we're like, oh my gosh, there's like 10 things to do. Okay, but like, what's the one thing, right? Like, what's the one thing? Like for me, right now, what is it? It's this book, right? It is 100% getting into as many hands and helping as many people as I possibly can. That's the number one thing. Do I have other goals around it, like growing my podcast or, you know, having my mastermind group taken care of? Of course I do. But like the level of energy is like we only have so much. I talk a lot about the energy jar. You wake up in the morning. I don't know if you remember that in my speech, yeah. Right? But it's filled up to the top with water. And as you go out through the day, you're just pouring it out, pouring it out, pouring out. Well, like how much do you have to give to this thing in order to win at that thing? And I had to give most of me to Canon to win.
Yeah. Okay. So that's something definitely to go a little further into, because I think that especially talking to the moms out there, which I know you're also known as obviously Coach Mummabear for a reason. You actually have 5 kids, 1 stepchild, and then 4. Yeah. You have your 2 twins, your boy, and an adopted girl that is absolutely stunning. She actually looks like you in some regard, and she's
by the way, you're the second person to say that in the last 2 days, and I will tell Charlie, we look like we're twins, and she's like, Mom, we're not twins. I'm like, look at our smiles, babe, they're the same.
Oh my gosh, she's stunning. You're stunning. There's similarities, most definitely. She's such a gem, but
she is joy.
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, you're a busy mom. You're an entrepreneur. You have a book coming out. You have a podcast. You're a speaker, a keynote speaker, which we'll get deeper into. But all the things, and I'm sure anybody listening right now, I'm sure feels. I know I feel this way at sometimes when you have so many things. You're juggling all the balls. Determining that one thing is one thing. If you want to say, we could determine that, get more clarity of like, okay, this is my main focus. I have a book launch. Obviously, I have to go all in on that. But how do you then keep the other balls rolling? How do you best manage that? What do you do, or what do you recommend to your clients?
Yeah. So one of the things I work on in my mastermind, which is called Empowered Life, is we spend about 4 weeks of our 6 months together, essentially finding out what our values are, proving what our values are, and then proving that they're in our life, right? So like if you showed me your calendar, Erica, I would be able to tell you whether you're living in your values or not, right? Because I can tell where you're putting your energy. And I wake up in the morning and I have a journal that I've created by myself that has like, what's my intention word for today? What's my biggest value in play today? What will make me feel good at the end of today? And it's really about, I think that we all get sort of off the beam. I talk about it off the beam, on the beam, right? Like very normal to do so. I feel like the most successful people that I work with, the ultimate, high performance people, are just much faster at getting back on it. And so when I look at what my life looks like, I just need to make sure that my values are in play. And for me, I know when I'm doing only work, and I don't have my family value in play in a day, I just don't have as good of a day. That's just part of it, right? And maybe I can't homeschool my children, but I absolutely can schedule my podcast interviews around being the person who drops them off and the person that picks them up from school. That's important to me. How do I know that? Because I've lived that experience and I know what my values are. And I know because at the end of every day, I look at my day and I do my journal for nighttime. And if I've gotten off the beam, I know where it is and what I have to do the next day.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, you cut off for a second, so I didn't hear your last words. I know it probably recorded, but sorry about that. I didn't hear your last words. But in regards to everything you were just saying, this is so, so good. This is absolute gold, because I think that this is actually the last couple weeks I was work. And I know, and anybody that's really in tune with themselves, they know when they're off balance. And I know I wasn't able to get my workouts in. And so at the end of the day, I was absolutely depleted, because that's one of my energy sources to get my movement in. It's one of my non-negotiables. It's the lifestyle I live. It's a part of me. So imagine if a part of you, a part of who you are, is not existent in your life, you're just going to be depleted. And so let's talk about this. So determining your values. I know a lot of people probably listening have done this before. They've written down, yes, I value family. I value, like people could talk about their values, honesty, integrity, and all these things. But when we talk about the things we value in our life, let it be fitness, your health. I know Melissa and I are super big into gut health. That has been a cornerstone for me actually for a long time, because I've struggled so much with my gut health. I don't know if you have the same story, but we finally found a solution and we're like, yes, like that.
And look at our skin. Yeah. Like, can you see our skin? Like, I mean, one of the like best parts, like totally side noting this, but like has been, I can't believe how great my skin is. It's crazy. I didn't know that it was connected to the gut. So
oh my goodness.
I'm very excited about my skin.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a whole topic in itself, but
I know. Sorry.
It's so true but when our gut health is right, that obviously affects our mood, it affects our skin health, it affects our energy. I mean, how much does that affect our energy as we're talking about? So that's one thing. I don't even know how I got on that, but I was talking about our values, right? Like our health. So I know health and movement are a big thing for Melissa and I. So imagine if you don't have that in your days, how that's going to deplete you to even show up best in your work. So
100%.
So, and I know this common thing that's talked about is like finding balance in your life, but balance is ever changing and ever evolving, because life comes in and will throw you off balance all the time. So what do we need to find instead? She writes this in the book, is we need to unfollow work-life balance, but instead follow work-life alignment. So can you talk a little bit about this? Because I love the word alignment. I think it is so key. But this has to do with our values, right? So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. And I think, values are, I think many people, when they talk about values, they're like, oh, I know my values. And a lot of the time, we actually live in other people's values, right? Because we don't really know, unless we're doing this work intensively, who we really are, right? So I had a client and she was like, I have kids and I feel like I'm supposed to put family as a value, but it's not. Like my value is adventure, right? Or for me, I remember when I was working on my values in the beginning and I really felt uncomfortable saying leadership. I was like, oh, I don't know. I feel like I need to have something like more humble, right? But the truth is, like, I am a natural born leader. And it's like the other part of why I place the work of values in the certain place that I do it in my program is because we kind of have to get to know who we are a little bit so that we can make sure that we're not living in other people's values of who we think we're supposed to be based on our partner, or, whether if we're a step parent or whatever it is, right? Like we have these sort of subconscious ways of being and showing up in the world. And sometimes they're not aligned with us. So a lot of the time when people are feeling just sort of unhappy and stuck, I really dig into that work because I feel like it is such a valuable thing that many people believe, oh, I've done that, and they sideline it, but like really they haven't done it correctly, right? So I talk a lot about value consciousness and being aware of what my values are and I'm in them. And it's really been the anchor of my whole life. And that leads me to work-life balance, right? I don't believe in work-life balance. I really think it is a waste of energy to try to figure it out. I know there's been a bunch of books written on it. I've read them. They didn't resonate for me. And so for me, what I was looking for, especially after doing the value work, was all right, how do I get this crazy life of mine to align? Okay, we know that I am an ambitious person. I have a lot of big goals that I want to achieve, right? I want to check those things off. I very much believe in one life. What am I going to do with it? How do I integrate those things together with the fact that I am a mother of 5? I also have 2 grandchildren, by the way, or one on the way, but one already, right?
Goodness.
And I'm 39. But like it's a lot of moving parts. I have a husband who has 50 employees and a big company, and he travels all over the world doing trials, and so it's easy to sort of not live in the alignment piece and seek balance all the time, because I think that's kind of what we've been told to seek. But yesterday I was literally voice noting with the organizer of an event that I'm keynoting at, asking if it was okay to bring my 10-year-old son to sit on the front row because he loves to see me speak. Oh. Right? So like I have developed this way of my life with my work is also like wherever I can involve my kids in it, I absolutely do. And as my kids get older, you better bet that they'll be editing my podcast, Erica, right? They'll be doing my slideshows for me, right? And that's not everybody's opportunity, but a lot of the people we speak to are entrepreneurs. And I think one of the biggest struggles is, how do I balance my work with my family life? And I just think when we unfollow that notion and move towards more thinking of it, like, again, question it with excitement. What would it be like, Erica, if my work and my life could actually be integrated, right? If they could be aligned, if I could go to Texas and be a keynote speaker and bring my kid with me, right? Like, why not, right? Like, what if I could do some of that? What if they could come and be a part of a retreat or whatever it is, And I think that needs to happen more and more and more as more women step away from corporate and do more entrepreneurial type work.
I love that. That's so inspiring. And I think that's a great thing to instead think of what if this were possible? And I think that's what obviously is the through and through with your book is giving a different option than what you've been told or what you've always thought of. And one of the things I love that you talk about is, and this is completely and it's something I believe in. I think this is exactly what we were doing when we were at the mastermind speaking there together, is start before you're ready. Like, jump in the deep end, say yes before you're ready. I remember when I said yes to speak at the mastermind, I wasn't prepared to have a talk, but I prepared because I said yes. And I love talking about this because I think it's so easy to stop ourselves because we're not ready per se. I mean, the best way to become ready is by saying yes, because now not only have you committed to yourself, you committed to somebody else. And so that's almost like the fuel to the fire is okay, you've thrown the fuel in the fire. Now you got to get the fire going. And so now it puts you into action. But some people, most people obviously are held back by, number one, wanting to be perfect. I'm not ready yet. We could say over and over, we're not ready yet because we think we need to be perfect to be ready. That's a delusion because, number one, never will anything be perfect. And our dear friend, Brooke Hemingway, she is such a great person to talk about this because she literally has experienced all the things falling apart, but she just moves and flows with it and is able to adjust because she knows she anticipates something could go wrong and that she can handle it, right? And so she is literally just moving forward regardless. And so talking about starting before you're ready, I love if you could share that, because I think that's really seeing how you've evolved in the last year is just beautiful to watch. And it makes me so overjoyed because I just remember us being in that room and you were so nervous and you nailed it.
So nervous.
You nailed it so much. And then we spoke at another event, Brooke Hemingway's event in January of 2023. And you nailed it there. And it's funny because I think, you're human just like all of us. We feel those nerves, we feel that fear, like, what if I mess up? But then, like, the more we just lean in and let ourselves be in the presence of where our feet are, is really when we could show up
Yeah.
the most powerful. And I think that's what you've been doing. So if you could kind of share your message on
Yeah.
that.
I've yet to meet a female entrepreneur who doesn't have some perfectionism in them, right? And we can apply it to any element of our life, right? Like, now is not the right time to have a baby. Now is not the right time to get married. Now is not the right time to be, off doing keynotes in different places, right? Now is not the right time to launch a book. I have this other thing that's really major happening in my personal life, right? Like, there's just that idea of like things have to be laid out a certain way in order for them to go correctly. And I think when you move beyond that, but also knowing that, like you just shared, right, how nervous I was to do that speech, right? Like, I was so nervous. I was in the bathroom like half the day, right? Like, I mean, truly. And I love sharing that stuff. And now whenever I'm speaking, I talk a lot about the messy middle of my life, right? This idea that I'm just going to swirl around it because it's not going anywhere, right? Like, there's always going to be something. And I don't know anybody that doesn't have something, Erica. Like, I really don't. Like, I've yet to meet the person who's like, everything in every category of my life is brilliant.
Well, let me actually,
well, that's awesome.
Melissa, can I interject there? Because I would say if you're not feeling that, then you're not playing big enough. You're playing small, you're staying in the mundane. Like, if you're not feeling those nerves, because anytime we step outside of something that we normally do, you're going to have fears, you're going to have that uncomfortableness. And I think if you're not, then that's more concerning, right?
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That is so true. And I am the type of person that likes to challenge myself. Like, that is definitely a part of my personality. I already have my next goals for next year. That's just like who I am. But I think that I became that through proving to myself that if I start this thing before I'm ready, right? Which, like, I remember doing my first podcast. Like, I remember literally sitting here doing my first solo podcast and being nervous. And I was the only person in the room, Erica, right? And so moving beyond that, asking yourself questions that could make it exciting. Like, imagine if there comes a day where a friend of mine says, hey, come on your podcast, and I'm jacked about it. I'm excited to do it. Like, that's today. But like, I had to do all the work for it before, and it required starting before I'm ready. And I really try to work with people on moving away from perfectionism, because that's when we procrastinate, right? Procrastination and perfectionism are best friends, right? And that's when we just live in that area of like, oh, that's not for me. And like you said, playing small. But when you start playing bigger, you really start to prove things to yourself. And I think that's what both of us are doing right now, like with many different things.
Yeah, and it is scary, but exactly when you prove yourself like, oh, it wasn't that bad, and you kind of get on the other side, you're like, oh, okay, I could do this. And then you keep doing it. Like, and when I started my podcast, same thing. It's like, oh my gosh, so much fear. I wouldn't put on video for like the 50th episode. Absolutely ridiculous. But video wasn't as big as it is now. But like, the more you do it, the better you get. Everybody starts from zero. Everybody's, a beginner when they first start. So I think the humanness in all that experience is just, we're showing.
Yeah, I'm constantly saying to my clients, like, it is not about keeping up, it's about showing up. It is not about keeping up, it's about showing up constantly, because we look at, like, I could look at you and be like, oh, I could never have 1 million downloads. I could never be, a 1% top podcast. Like, I could live in that, or I could start to be like, oh, this is kind of exciting. Maybe if I just keep showing up, look at that, I'm in the top 10% already. You know what I mean? Like, and start asking those questions from this exciting place of the life you seek to live, rather than I could never, or keeping up with someone else, right? And I think that leads into the perfectionism stuff too. Like, they're all tied in together and they keep us the same. And if we only get one life, why do we want to stay the same?
Exactly. So if somebody is feeling, if they're radically honest with themselves, which I think that's what you talk about awareness a lot. That's awareness is the
Yeah.
foundation of change. So if you were actually asking
Yeah.
yourself, like, oh, yeah, I do procrastinate. Oh, yeah, I do have perfectionist tendencies. What are some questions we should ask ourselves to move ourselves out of wanting to do things perfectly before we start? What would be some of the things you would?
Yeah, I often have my clients do something I call a thought detox. And it's kind of like a detox. Like you and I have done 3-day resets, right? Like often we've done these sort of where we're detoxing our inside. And so a thought detox is essentially the same thing, but for our thoughts and our brain. So usually where I have them start is sort of like tell them to go somewhere where they're not going to be distracted, turn their phone off, and for like an hour, just free flow light writing, right? Just writing everything that's coming out of your brain. Because I also think one of the things that keeps us there, Erica, is we never are in silence, right? We're always in noise, 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 other people's opinions, social media, work, clients, all the things. And it's like, I have clients who will come to me and they'll be like, Melissa, I'm 40 and I don't even know what kind of food I like or what movie I watch, right? And so, like, we are in this area of self discovery, but how do we get unstuck? Well, we have to like figure out what we want first, right? And sometimes that requires a retreat. Sometimes that requires working with a coach. Sometimes it just requires being on your own. And I'm going to tell everybody that's listening, after you listen to this podcast, maybe sit for an hour by yourself in complete silence. Go to a park, sit somewhere by yourself, put your phone on airplane mode, right? And just thought detox for an hour. Just see what comes out. Like, no one's going to see it, right? Burn it afterwards if you want. I have some clients who burn it afterwards. They don't want to show it. But we have to get quiet in order to figure out what we even want.
Oh, it's such gold. And I've talked about this a lot. And I love how you talk about airplane mode, because I remember sharing this. This was one of my aha moments. So I was trying to figure out one of the next things I was doing, like the next program I was doing. And I knew what was probably one of the most, I'm trying to think of the word. Anyways, there was one thing that I knew I could do. Like I knew people would buy and all the things, but I felt I wanted to go this direction. Like this is my calling. This is my purpose. Yes, I could serve this, but yet I want to go this way. But I was playing tug of war with it. And this day I went on a walk with my other dog, and I left my phone at home, and I didn't bring anything to listen to, obviously. And I just went for a walk. On this walk, I got clarity. I literally got an aha moment of clarity. And that would not have happened if I brought my phone or listened to a podcast as I do often on walks. And that was just my advice from that day forward. I'm like, literally just that moment of silence. For me, nature is one of the best ways to get really in touch with my heart. And so I just highly recommend the same thing. Like when you say airplane mode, yeah, if your phone's near you, obviously, if you have it on, if you have it near you, you're going to check it. Unfortunately, it's a habit now. I mean, I know I'll be in work, and if my phone's by me, I'll still pick it up. Like it's really sad, actually. I think I pick it up probably every 15 minutes. I mean, it's just plain old a habit.
Well, I actually write about that in the book. It's one of the chapters, and I talk about unfollowing autopilot and following airplane mode, which is essentially what we're talking about right now. But on the reason why I sort of developed that part of the book was I host women's retreats, and on the women's retreat, I take everybody's phone. So I take everyone's phone for the entire 3 days. No one is allowed a phone in the house. And I lock their phones away, and I give all of their significant others my phone number. So if something would happen at home, and I take it away, and I just watched how much of a struggle that was for everybody. Like it was really, really difficult. Like one of my attendees cried handing it over, and she goes, I don't know why I'm crying. I just feel emotional. Like I've never not had my phone.
Wow.
And what happens is, I mean, it is 3 magical days in big part because everyone's talking to each other. We're looking each other in the eye. Nobody's checking on anything. Everybody feels seen because we're able to have a conversation where no one's putting their head down and quickly checking on their stuff. And so the ability to be where your feet are is significantly easier when you're on airplane mode. And it's like the greatest gift. I tell my clients, do it every Sunday. If it gives you heart failure to do it all day, start by doing 5 hours. Don't turn your phone on until 12 o'clock on a Sunday and just start to experience what it's like to really be where you are. Oh. And I think that that's sort of the I also have something that I love, and I tell anyone that struggles with their phone to buy this. It's called a K safe, and I read about it in the book Focus. And a K safe is basically a plastic box with a lid that goes on top that has a timer, and you lock your phone inside it and you do a timer. And so when I'm feeling like I'm going to check my phone too much, like this week, I really had to draft a bunch of copy. And I knew if I just had 3 hours, Erica, uninterrupted, I could finish this entire copy. So I locked my phone in my K safe for 3 hours, and 3 hours later, all the copy was done because I wasn't distracted. And that book Focus really talks about that idea of, you know, we're checking it so much and it takes X amount of time to get back on track. And then that's why we don't finish all of these things. And so really airplane mode has been a major part of my journey over the last 5 years. I go on one vacation a year where for like 5 to 10 days, I switch my phone completely off. I did it this year. I went to Spain. And I switched my phone off for 10 days. My husband had his phone on so that if there was an emergency with the kids, we had someone to contact to. But for 10 days, like I was like just able to be where I was in Spain. Like I was able to just, you know, look around and sit in a coffee shop and observe and write. And like it's so underrated tool. I just like, I love that it resonates with you. And it's so interesting to me as I'm doing these interviews about the book, like what resonates with like each host. So that's really, I love that resonates with you because it's a big deal to me.
Yeah. And I think it is so powerful. And I think it's very challenging for people, especially honestly entrepreneurs, because I think, at least I feel this pressure that you need to show up. You need to be consistent on social media to be relevant. And I personally feel that pressure, but I don't like it because I rather be present in my life, and I don't want to feel that need to show up all the time, share tons of stories and all these things. And I think you're giving people permission that be true, that we don't need, like, we need to honor our peace and our time as well. It shouldn't be all work or all this one thing. And so I love that. And I know, and one thing I like about, I just remember us talking about this during your retreats. You do one adventurous thing. I think one of the things you love to do is whitewater rafting. And it's one of my most favorite things. But
oh yeah, we do scary things.
Yeah, I love that. That's my jam. That's my everything. But imagine if you had your phone and you're filming all these things, you won't be as present in the experience. So it's like just knowing that, like, imagine you're doing something super exciting and adventurous. Like this is your first time you whitewater raft, but let's just say, I mean, where you're not able to hold a phone while you're whitewater rafting, but let's say you're on your phone while you're doing this experience, whatever it may be, you won't be able to experience it to the depth of the possibility of what you could in this adventure. And so I love you're giving people permission to be present in their lives and actually get things more efficiently done. Considering you just finished your manuscript, that you have a book coming out. By the way, what's the date it's coming out?
November 27th is when the date that it comes out. All right, so it's awesome. Like around the corner.
I know. Okay. It's going to be in the show notes. Of course, everybody's going to want to grab it, called UnFollow. I keep on forgetting. Sorry.
Question everything with excitement.
I'm like, I know it's excitement, but yes, question everything with excitement. I love it. There's so many chapters and so many things we need to unfollow, instead follow and reframe the way we see things in our lives. So everybody, of course, I want to encourage you to get this book. I'm super excited. And I also want to talk about you have another event you're speaking at in January. I will be there present cheering you on, as well as other absolutely incredible speakers. And I want to just talk about that. What will you be sharing in this keynote speaking event called Breakthrough? Breakthrough. It's with Brooke Hemingway, and she's going to be having this in San Antonio, Texas. And I want to invite everybody else to join. I will plug in a discount code in the show notes. So be sure to get there. I will be there. Melissa will be taking the stage, and trust me, she will blow your mind. You will love her. So what will you be talking about at this event?
So I will be talking about obviously the book, and I'll be picking certain chapters from the book. So what I've decided to do is to allow whoever is doing the event to sort of decide on the chapters that they might want me to focus on. And so I want to really like customize every keynote that I do. So they're not all going to be the same. So I actually have a bunch of keynotes coming up about UnFollow, but I'm going to like tailor them to who the audience is, what the thing is that they're trying to do. And obviously this line is called Breakthrough, right? That's what they're going to try to do. So I want to tailor it to be that each of these things that people are questioning themselves with will lead to a breakthrough. So I'll be picking specific topics inside of UnFollow, and there's 20 different chapters. So every speech will be different, but everyone that's listening needs to come to align. I mean, you and I that conference is just fire. It is next level. I mean, I remember you and I sitting there and just writing notes and writing notes and writing notes. And I mean, I will be doing that also, by the way. When I'm not speaking, I will be sitting with Erica and I will be taking lots of notes, because every speaker is just so inspiring. Mm-hmm. And really, it lit me up for like a year. I mean, I love the timing of it. It's at the beginning of the year, and it really, a lot has changed for me since attending Align. And so I know that that's just going to happen again. So
absolutely. And you have this thing that you are so, so big on Postit notes. Can you kind of share I know she shared her Postit notes with me at Align as well. And we're just jotting down all these things. Yes. She's a Postit note queen. But how can we utilize Postit notes to maybe organize our day more? What would you suggest?
So for me, I call it the power of the Post-it. I actually did a whole podcast episode on it in my podcast, because Post-it notes have changed my life. And everybody that I give these Post-it to notes, they just like absolutely love them. And all it is for anybody that's watching this is a Post-it with my brand on it. But I write down my goals on my Post-its, and I write them down like they're already done. So I talk about that in the book, actually, this sort of idea of writing down our goals like they're already achieved. But also, like, you can use it, like I have them right here, like on my laptop. I have, a question I love to ask people: how can I help you win? Right? Like, that's something I ask people all the time, right? How can I help Erica win? Right? Like, how can I help you win? And so, like, I love to have different questions that will incite things inside of me. But I mean, you could put your 3 things you're supposed to do on this. You could put your 1 thing on this. I mean, I feel like Post-it notes are very powerful. At least they have, my life. And I love moving my like to do onto like my done wall. So I'm almost there with my book one. I almost get to move it over.
I'm so excited for you. I love it. I know I love that. And I'm sure you've inspired your kids to do the same.
Oh, yes. They actually have, so 2 of my boys want to play golf in high school for a particular team. So they wrote on one of my Post-it notes, I play golf for Bishop Moore High School, and they put it on their lockers. So that's oddly on their locker. They're not going to be in high school for like 3 years, and they're already like setting the goal. It's like so cute.
Oh, it's so inspiring. I love that. You are so remarkable, Melissa. I love you so much. Where can people best follow, find, learn more about you? Of course, everything will be in the show notes, but just to verbally tell everybody.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. At Coach Mummabear, and you'll get to see my crazy work-life alignment life. where I'm like picking up the kids 1 minute and changing into a podcast outfit the next minute. And then I'm changing again and heading to baseball. And so you'll get to see all of that in real time. And I have a lot of fun on there. And then obviously my website, melissawiggins.life, you can get, I have a newsletter that comes out where you can stay in touch with me there. And then the book will be on Amazon to start with. So I hope that you will consider unfollowing and questioning everything with excitement.
Oh gosh, so good. So exciting. Okay, so last question I ask all my guests. Melissa, if you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you've learned in your vast journey that you just feel you need to shout out at the world today, what would that piece of wisdom be and why?
Yeah. Stop focusing on keeping up and start focusing on showing up.
And why has that message been the most profound to you?
I think it's been the most profound because I've started to play a lot bigger in the game of life over the last year. And it has required that I focus my energy on myself and how I show up and what the intention behind my showing up is, rather than looking at some of the, it would be easy to say, okay, I'm going to be speaking out of line. Oh my gosh, there's billion-dollar cosmetic company founders that are going to be on the same stage that I am. What? Like, I'm just a little lassie from Scotland. Okay. Like, how do I get it? So it'd be easy to sort of like think, but I'm not trying to keep up with them, like I'm just trying to focus all of my energy on how I show up. And that's all I have in control really anyway, right? And I think when we start focusing more of our energy on there, what I have found to be true is that my ability to get places I'm trying to go has got much faster.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love that. So powerful. So true. It's so easy for us to look at everything outside of us and all the people turning to our right, to our left and whatnot. But if we just focus in our lane, like how are we becoming better? How are we improving? How are we moving closer to our goals and whatnot? It's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. So good. Like I said, everything will be in the show notes. Everybody go follow Melissa Wiggins, Coach Mummabear. She will light up your life and so inspire you. And please also go check out her retreat, her 6-month coaching mastermind. She has just great things in store. So I encourage you to all go check it out and grab the new book, UnFollow, Follow Everything with Excitement.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was awesome.
So great. So great. Love you much.